bring in Thomas Robertson from the Toffee Blues podcast, joining us to give the Everton perspective. Are you feeling a bit more positive about Gerrard's former England teammate, Frank Lampard, the job that he's doing at Everton?
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds like it anyway. I mean, we've had a pretty decent summer so far. We knew we had to make some additions, and we just signed Amadou Onana from the French league, who is apparently a very coveted young midfielder. I won't pretend to know too much about him, but it seems like we're just doing smart business for once. Like Villa, we've thrown money out left, right, and centre at players that it hasn't really materialised and it hasn't worked. I mean, that's been well publicised for the past few years, but it seems like we're doing smart business, getting Cody in on a loan, Tarkovsky on a free, trying to shore up that defence. It does breed more optimism around the club. There's still a couple of holes that people definitely want filled, but yeah, no, I think by the sounds of it, I am definitely feeling a bit more optimistic about this season.
I think the concerns around Lampard, and I'm not going to pretend like these are other people's concerns, I've felt the same as well, is that the things that are great about Frank Lampard, both as a player and now in his managerial career, is that he has that passion, he has that just ability to fire people up, and it felt like you were carried to being saved by all of that rah-rah, by all of that kind of just on pure energy and hard work and everything that came along with that. I guess what I'm fascinated to see this season is that something that can be carried on over a 38-game season, or are we going to see a Frank Lampard that we've maybe not seen in any of his jobs so far, a bit more tactically astute, a bit more long-term development in there? That's the kind of things I want to see from him this year.
Yeah, it's definitely a fascinating one, as you mentioned there. I mean, towards the end of last season, kind of football was going out the window. It was about the passion, it was about the fans. And just keeping those energy levels up. And that did help massively, but it also meant that we couldn't assess Lampard properly at the time. Now he's obviously been given the summer, he's been given pre-season. He's going to have a full season ahead of him. I am fascinated to see how he does. And he is, as you mentioned, he's such a likeable character. And we've had managers in the past that when it started going downhill for them, no one was really that bothered because as a character, they weren't particularly likeable at all. And they didn't really have that connection with the fans. But what Lampard's done, creating that connection, kind of bring an atmosphere back to Goodison Park, which we have seen, especially in the last few weeks of last season, that we all want him to succeed, and I think he will get a bit more leeway than other managers have. But it's important that he does crack on, because we know that the deficiencies that he's had in the past, as you mentioned there, maybe his tactics have been called into question, but he has a fantastic backroom staff, it seems, and hopefully we are going to see kind of a better Frank Lampard than we have maybe, kind of towards the end of his time at Chelsea. And I'm very excited to see how it goes, because, as I said before, this is now a time where he's had a pre-season and we can now genuinely assess him from a footballing perspective.
I want this time of year to be about positivity. I feel like when you come into a new season, everyone should be looking at the new signings, getting excited. Obviously, started so early this year as well, that I don't want to necessarily bring negativity into the conversation, but is there a world where, if you take away those last few results of last year where, turned it around, stayed up, the form wasn't there for Everton, there were some genuine concerns they get drawn into that relegation battle. If things don't improve by October, November from a results base, do you see Lampard being under pressure, or is he just won enough goodwill from last season?
I think, to be honest, he will be given the time. I think, especially on Twitter and in the media, there seems to be a lot of kind of clamour for him to be. He might be the first manager sacked. I've seen that a lot from fans of other clubs. But I don't really see it that way. I think the backing that he's got from the fans and the board seems to kind of concept that we need stability now. We've had so much chopping and changing, and we've lost so much money that we can't spend the money that we have in the past. You kind of have to just build around the manager, given the time. Bear in mind, we're not spending masses and masses of money. I mean, we're still spending a bit of money. We're spending more than we did last year, definitely. But it seems like we need stability. This is the first season under our new director of football as well, Kevin Thelwell. So I think it's all going to come together. And I think he will definitely be given the time by the board, even if it's not going tremendously well by October. Because I think especially the fans don't have, I don't want to say they don't have high expectations this season, but we don't have the expectations that we've had in the past of wanting European football and expecting it really, which we did for a time, where I think most fans are accepting it's going to be like another mid-table, it's going to be a mid-table season around there, and it's all just a build-on. So I do see him being given time, even if he is struggling in October.
You hope it's another mid-table season. Thomas Robertson from the Toffee Blues podcast is with us. We also do have Chris Bird from My Old Man Said, covering Villa. It's our big game this weekend, Saturday lunchtime, 12:30. Fascinating early season clash. Bring Chris back in. And Chris, look, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm sure Thomas might disagree with me on this, and maybe the listeners will disagree with me on this. If I look at these squads on paper, if I look at what both the managers in Gerrard and Lampard had done before they came to their current jobs, if I look to, honestly, the way that the club is built, the structure around it, Everton had that series of windows where the buying was erratic, where there seemed to be 5 different people in charge, where they got a lot of dead weight in their squad. I'd have suggested that Villa were in the stronger position, and yet we're here one game into the season, and I think people can tell from the tone, Chris, that you're a lot more negative on where Villa are than Everton fans seem to be right now.
I'm not negative. I think there are frustrations sort of carried on from last season. You know, the way we ended last season, I think everybody's just, they want that. I think there's a higher expectation, but it might not necessarily be realistic. But the way the board have talked, Gerrard, the players, they're all talking about Europe this, Europe that. You know, Gerrard, when he first came in, was talking about it's a no excuses culture wants to breed, and yet all we've heard is nothing but excuses. Most fans don't like when managers throw players under the bus. I'd rather see him coming out and say, actually, do you know what, I got it wrong today. I think people would have far more respect for him if he did that. But in terms of, you know, the squad, I mean, as a 22, 25-man squad, we're probably as strong as we've ever been, probably since the sort of Martin O'Neill era, if not stronger, to be honest. The business we've done, I actually think, is really savvy. And that's where it'll come in with Gerrard, is that actually he doesn't have any excuses now because, you know, our starting 11 and our squad, we've got 2 players for every position for probably the first time in well over a decade. There's some real quality. There's splatterings of sort of world-class players. You know, we've got one of the best goalkeepers in the world. I think Coutinho on his day, you know, can still do it. It's just going to come down to, can Gerrard get the right combination? How fast is it going to take him to, you know, learn his best starting 11? You know, can he either reintegrate Mings or find a new centre-back pairing? There's just lots of questions unanswered. I'm not necessarily negative. I'm just a little bit sort of cautiously optimistic rather than, you know, blind optimism.
Look, I'm going to ask you both the same question. Chris first. Are you going to get a result against Everton at Villa Park today?
We should. I'll take a scrappy 1-0 if I'm honest. Just put the points on the board and get us up and running for the season.
That's fair. That's fair. Tom, what are you saying, Thomas? Are you going to Villa Park and taking all 3?
I think we've got the possibility to do so, especially if we can kind of jump on some of that negativity that might be around. I think that the first game of the season wasn't a good measure of where we really are. We didn't have a tremendous pre-season, to be honest, but yeah, I don't think the first game of the season was a good judge, and it'd be interesting to see if we can pick up our away form again, which kind of has been historically bad over the past few years. Got good under Ancelotti, and then last season it was absolutely woeful again. So I think it'll be a good test of just about where we are. I think we definitely can win.
Well, look, I'm genuinely hyped for this game. This is 2 of the clubs I think that really represent for me outside of that obvious top 6 in the Premier League. Those kind of, and I think actually Leeds, Forest being back in the Premier League, those teams who have had brilliant success in the park, fantastic fan bases, like when their home stadiums get rocking, they're absolutely superb places to be, kind of teams that you kind of want to see having success. They're kind of teams that bring real joy to the neutral football fan. And so look, I'm hyped. I think it's going to be a great game.